Hello everybody, Batset here, bringing you another figure review. This time we're going to be taking a look at the new DC Comics Multiverse Batman action figure from Mattel, which is, as you can probably tell by the logo on the upper right-hand corner and the portrait, and probably by the design of the name underneath the figure, this isn't just any Batman, but specifically the 1989 Batman as played by Michael Keaton in that film, as well as its successor, Batman Returns. It's a it's almost basic, not as nice as what they do for their WWE lines or even what Hasbro does in their simplicity for their Marvel line, in that all you have is the figure in a nice little box showing off all the details. You can see the figure itself as well as the accessory. A nice little portrait right next to the figure of Michael Keaton as Batman. Name of the figure and the name of the line up top, and you can almost see Adult Collector up on the top of the packaging, which I'll mention later on why it's almost a laughable point. Side of the packaging, and nothing really on the side of the packaging, so you just get a simple bubble on the card. Turn the packaging around, and you have same portrait on the back, a little bit of a blurb showing off some information about Batman. If you don't know who Batman is at this point, or what his status is in regards to the comic bookdom, if that's a real word, I don't know what to say to that. Just that, it's Batman, so 75 years and countless information out there for you to look at, and Wikipedia, it's out there. You also see an additional figures on the back here. You got Terrence Stamp here as General Zod from Superman 2. Mr. Freeze as he appears in the Arkham City video game, or I think it was Arkham Asylum. I'm not sure. I've yet to actually play either one. Complain about that later. And then you have the variant, which I'll talk about later as well, to this figure. Now to open him up. The paintwork on Batman is pretty interesting. It's not done in what I would call a gloss finish, but it's not exactly dull either. The way they painted it is pretty similar to how on screen the Michael Keaton costume looked whenever it would hit in certain lights. So it reflects almost very realistically. One thing that I would point out though is that when you're doing a figure at this scale, which is in the 4-inch scale, there's going to be a couple of things that that won't be done all that well. So when Mattel did this figure, they kind of messed up on a couple of things. Namely, the logo isn't exactly painted as well as it could have been. If I can get in focus for you, you can see that. There's a lot of slop. You probably can't tell, but there's a lot of slop around it. I went through like 4 or 5 figures in the rack before I found one that at least had the logo painted on correctly. In case you probably couldn't tell earlier, the figure has a kind of faux leather cape going on, which is a wise choice on Mattel's part. I think they did a similar cape for the Arkham Origins Batman and the Batman Unlimited figure line, but since I never did see that figure or even handle it, I can't confirm that. I know from a design standpoint it was probably hard plastic, but it looked a little bit like this. This one is all cloth, as you can probably tell here. So if Mattel ever does a appropriate Batmobile to go with this Batman, he will more than likely fit inside of it. I know supposedly they're doing a Arkham City Batmobile for this figure line, the 4-inch scale. Articulation is pretty interesting to say the least. When I said earlier that it's almost laughable how they call this an adult collector line, Hasbro, which pretty much makes their Marvel Legends line geared towards the adult collector with some kiddie value thrown in, they actually try and a lot of times to appeal towards the older fan. and keep that clear separation between the kids and the adults that collect these things too, pretty separate. But Mattel just seems to think that only children and begging their parents in Target or Walmart will actually buy these things. So they do try to dumb it down as much as they can. With that said, Batman's articulation is as follows. He's got ball joints in his shoulders, so both shoulders can go up, though there might be some obstruction because of the cape. But he features no bicep swivel, so this is as far as that will go. Nothing in the gauntlets, but he does have wrist articulation in both wrists. As you can probably tell, one fist is sculpted to look like a fist, whereas the other one is sculpted open to hold products, including the included accessory. He also has articulation here at his waist. No ab articulation though, no ab crunch or any type of hinge, ball joint swivel, which is kind of a shame, but at the same time, I don't think Michael Keaton was really doing a whole lot of doubling over in the film. Could be wrong. I should have watched the movie again before I did this review, but that's just my fault on that. Still would have been nice to feature something in that joint, just to make it less of a movable statue. He does have articulation in the hips as well as the famous DC Universe Classics hip hinge, as you can probably see. He's also got articulation down here at his knees too. One of the things that was most asked for when it comes to Batman figures was that Mattel actually designed these with double jointed knees, the kind that are actually seen on a lot of Marvel Legends figures. And they finally did do this with the Arkham Origins Batman, which was such a hard to find figure that I'm hoping that now it's actually gone down from the $100 people are asking for to something manageable. I still probably won't be getting it though. The next Batman figure that's been designed with this, it looks like, is the Keaton Batman. But as you can see what I'm doing here, it doesn't exactly work as effective as you would think. I think they made this back half a little bit too thick in order for the leg joint, the knee joint to bend fully back. Now I think the effect probably could work just as well, but for a crouching down position, which Batman needs to do, it's not exactly serviceable. Both knees are like this, so he'll probably be looking a little bit ridiculous when crouching. Which, is a shame because Batman's always been kind of like this ninja freak-like character, and he would need to actually do that when dodging clubs and bullets and stuff. One last point about the articulation that I didn't forget to mention. I just saved it for last because it was interesting. If you know the history of the Batman costumes over the years used by the various actors, the ones used in the Burton Schumacher series are notorious for the fact that the hard rubber plastic involved with the neck and cowl, no actor could turn their neck. In fact, a friend of mine once said that that's one reason why George Clooney's performance was so stilted, is because Clooney acts so much with his neck that you take that away from him, and you're left with somebody that doesn't know what to do with their movements too much, which is a hilarious point for a film that had so many bad points that it actually takes the edge off of a lot of the obvious criticisms of it for something more ridiculous. But anyway, Keaton Batman here does the unthinkable for Keaton Batman, in which, yes, his neck does turn. I believe it's meant to be on a ball joint, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually a simple swivel. I don't want to push that too further and snap this in half, but yeah, Keaton Bat can turn his neck, and he can look from side to side. You know, I believe he probably could do it if I do it enough. Yep, full 360 right there. Do some exorcism type of moves. Keaton Batman's only accessory is actually the grappling hook that it's seen in a couple of different points in the film. It's made of very soft rubber, if I can just bring it a little bit closer for you to see. See here in his hand. You know, it fits pretty good in his hand, a little bit tight, so as you can see there's some warping of the plastic of the handle there, so I don't know how long I'll actually keep it there or need to adjust it some to fit right, but it does fit in his hand indeed. It will be warped out of package. You know, I didn't realize where it was stuffed inside when I pulled it out, so obviously mine is looking a lot wonkier than it should. But you know, for something of this scale, you know, it's not looking too bad. You know, I would have wished for something a little bit harder plastic, but at the same time, I would have wished for more bicep swivel, for a bicep swivel in Batman, if we were going that route as well. So with all that said, how does the figure stack up? Well, it is a Michael Keaton Batman. As I said before, when Movie Masters came out, there was a long list of most wanted figures from that line, because at the time we didn't know if it would extend to any other lines DC picked up since then, which has obviously been the case since they've gotten Ghostbusters, but it was almost a given if they were going to focus on the DC movies that Michael Keaton Batman and the Christopher Reeve Superman would be thrown in there somewhere. Unfortunately, it looks like if this is how the line is going forward, we're probably never going to get 6-inch versions of Keaton Batman and the Chris Reeve Superman. So it seems like 4 inches is the only way that we're going to see those versions of those characters in plastic form. Which is a shame because it puts a lot of collectors in a quandary, in my opinion, of whether or not they're going to switch scales all of a sudden to fill a hole in their collection. So having this in hand, you know, it does feel like Mattel definitely cheapened itself out. Common complaint they always said was that the rising costs of just plastic and oil and, you know, tooling, it wasn't enough to sustain the 6-inch line. So that's why that's one of the supposed reasons that they killed it. If that was truly the case, then they should have actually made the effort to take what they'd learned from that 6-inch line and incorporate it into the 4-inch line. Because what we have here is almost ridiculous compared to what Hasbro has been doing with Marvel. When you have a figure in the same scale and the same price point with at least 20 points more articulation, it does feel a little bit like the consumer and the fans itself too are being cheated out. But just don't take my angry rant as anything as a slight against the figure itself. You know, like I said, it's a Michael Keaton Batman. It's a nice figure. Won't be able to say too much if it looks like Keaton or not. You know, it could easily be anybody underneath the cowl. A good way to be a judge of it would be judging the faces of this one and the variant. When I picked this one up, the variant was already gone. I presume more people have more luck at Toys R Us according to the reports I've heard at finding the variant there, but I'm holding out hope to catch one in the wild somewhere else out there. But be warned, the variant also has some its eyes are very painted very weirdly, and it's not exactly on point likeness to Michael Keaton. I mean, obviously it's going to be very soft in comparison to what a 6-inch or even a 7-inch figure would be. Obviously it's not going to look anything like NECA's 1/18th, I think it was 1/18th scale Batman figure, which did have a very spot-on Keaton likeness, or Hot Toys' figure, which the jawline obviously did look like Keaton. But for a Batman figure, it's pretty solid. I don't think I'll be getting a whole lot more in this line. I may end up getting You know, the Batman Returns figures, Penguin and Catwoman, which were not depicted on the package, have also been released. And, you know, there's also a Christopher Reeve Superman that's in the same style, too, that I shall be keeping an eye out for. Until next time, this is Bat Said. I'll see you later.